What if I told you that the most crucial piece of evidence in the Night Stalker case was sitting in a police evidence locker for 3 months, completely ignored? By the end of this video, you'll discover the shocking oversight that nearly let Richard Ramirez walk free, and how one detective's obsession finally cracked the case wide open. It's 3:47 a.m. on August 15, 1985. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead in the Los Angeles Police Department's evidence room. Detective Gil Carrillo sits alone at a metal desk, surrounded by towers of manila folders and crime scene photographs. His coffee has gone cold hours ago, but he doesn't notice. His eyes are bloodshot from strain, but he can't stop looking. For 3 months, Carrillo has been living and breathing this case. While his colleagues have moved on to other investigations, he remains haunted by the faces of the Night Stalker's victims. 13 people dead, 11 more barely clinging to life after brutal attacks. And the killer? Still out there, still hunting. Carrillo picks up a photograph from the Needing crime scene, an elderly couple found bound and beaten in their own bedroom. He's studied this image 100 times, but tonight something feels different. There's a detail nagging at him, something everyone else missed. There has to be something, he whispers to himself, something we're not seeing. The detective opens his notebook and flips through pages of meticulous observations. Fellow officers have started calling him obsessed. His wife barely sees him anymore. His captain has suggested he take a break, get some perspective. But Carrillo can't let go. Every night he sees the victims' faces. Every morning he wakes up knowing the killer is still free. What Carrillo doesn't realize yet is that the answer he's desperately searching for is sitting just 3 feet away from him, buried in a stack of evidence bags that have been collecting dust since May. The moment that changes everything happens at exactly 4:23 a.m. Carrillo reaches for his coffee and accidentally knocks over a box of evidence from the Peter Pan case, a break-in from 3 months earlier, where the intruder left behind a single, obvious sneaker print. As the contents spill across the floor, a clear plastic evidence bag slides under the desk. Inside is a plaster cast of a shoe print, tagged and forgotten. Most detectives would have simply swept it back into the box. But as Carrillo bends down to retrieve it, the cast catches the harsh fluorescent light at just the right angle. The tread pattern is identical to prints found at 6 other crime scenes. Carrillo's hands start shaking. He grabs the magnifying glass and examines the cast more closely. The wear pattern, the unique scarring on the sole, even a small chunk missing from the heel. It all matches. This isn't just the same brand of shoe. This is the exact same shoe. No way, he breathes. No fucking way. For the first time in months, Carrillo allows himself to feel something other than despair. But this discovery also terrifies him. If he's right, it means the Night Stalker has been active longer than anyone realized. The Peter Pan case wasn't random, it was his first known attack. The next 18 hours become a blur of manic energy. Carrillo cross-references every piece of evidence, every witness statement, every crime scene photograph. He maps out the attacks chronologically, and a chilling pattern emerges. The Night Stalker didn't suddenly appear in June. He'd been perfecting his methods since March, learning from each attack, becoming more brutal with every victim. But Carrillo faces a devastating problem. The shoe print evidence has been contaminated. 3 months of improper storage has compromised the chain of custody. Any defense attorney would get it thrown out of court in minutes. The most crucial piece of evidence in the case is legally worthless. How could we have missed this? How could I have missed this? The detective slams his fist against the desk, sending papers flying. All those victims, all those sleepless nights, and the answer was right here the entire time. He picks up the phone to call the task force commander, then stops. What would he say? That he'd potentially solved the case, but the evidence wouldn't hold up in court? Carrillo makes a decision that will define the rest of his career. Instead of officially reporting the contaminated evidence, he begins his own shadow investigation. If legal evidence won't convict the Night Stalker, then he'll find another way. 3 weeks later, at 2:15 p.m. on September 3rd, Carrillo gets the call that validates everything. A fingerprint match on a stolen car connects Richard Ramirez to the Night Stalker crimes. But here's what the official reports don't mention. Carrillo had already identified Ramirez as a suspect based on his shadow investigation of the shoe evidence. When police surround Ramirez in East LA, Carrillo notices something that makes his heart race. The suspect is wearing the exact same obvious sneakers from the crime scenes, the same shoes that had been haunting Carrillo's dreams for months. "Check his shoes," Carrillo tells the arresting officers. Check the soles. The wear pattern is identical. The missing chunk from the heel is there. After 4 months of terror, 24 victims, and countless sleepless nights, the Night Stalker is finally in custody. But the real revelation comes during Ramirez's interrogation. When confronted with the shoe evidence, he shows no emotion, no surprise, no denial. "You've been looking for that print for a while, haven't you?" Ramirez asks, almost amused. "I wondered when someone would finally put it together." The Night Stalker had known about the evidence all along. He'd been waiting, watching, wondering if the police were competent enough to connect the dots. In his twisted mind, the investigation had become part of the game. Carrillo realizes the horrifying truth. If he hadn't accidentally knocked over that evidence box, if he hadn't been obsessively working through the night, Richard Ramirez might have continued killing indefinitely. The Night Stalker was too careful, too methodical. The contaminated shoe print was the only mistake he'd made, and it had nearly been overlooked forever. Detective Gil Carrillo's obsession saved lives. His refusal to accept that some cases are unsolvable led to one of the most important arrests in criminal history. But here's what haunts him to this day. How many other crucial pieces of evidence are sitting in police storage rooms, waiting for someone to accidentally discover them? The Night Stalker case taught law enforcement that sometimes the most important breakthroughs come not from new technology or advanced techniques, but from a detective who simply refuses to give up. If you're fascinated by the investigative techniques that finally brought down Richard Ramirez, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Next week, in Part 4, we'll reveal the psychological profile that predicted the Night Stalker's next move, and why FBI profilers initially thought they were hunting two different killers. The link to our complete Night Stalker case file, including never-before-seen police photographs and interview transcripts, is in the description below. Remember, justice doesn't always come from following procedure. Sometimes it comes from a detective who's willing to work through the night, alone in an evidence room, refusing to let the victims be forgotten. The Night Stalker files will return.